Catherine is a little bit delayed today, so we are going to begin. Okay, so today's Pearl of Wisdom is one of my favorites. It's resolve. So resolve, it's interesting, 7 ways to anchor yourself in your resolve. So even before we go down the ways, I think what's useful is to understand what is a resolve. So a resolve is, the way I look at it is there's a very big difference between being committed to something and being, people that are interested in something and people that are committed. There's a very different level of engagement. There is very different level of focus. Similarly, there is an equal level of difference between those that are resolved about something and those that are committed. Those that are resolved, for them, whatever it is that they are resolved about has already occurred. And really all that is happening is actions are unfolding that they are proactively engaged in taking, and they are very vigilant about, if there are any changes of direction that need to be done, they work with that, but they carry on. They're not shaken by that a resolve is unwavering because it has already landed in the reality of those that are operating from resolve. Committed, you're committed to something and you're getting there. So if you lose motivation, you may feel, your commitment is wavering. Doesn't happen with resolve. Resolve, the job's done. It's here already. The second thing to understand is, how do you know what you are resolved about? You know what you are resolved about based on what you have in your life. Whatever is going on with you is what you are resolved about. So for example, if it looks like, you work so hard and something goes sideways and it takes you off, and then you have to regroup and return back again. And you're seeing that is occurring again and again and again. And yes, there's a part of it which is your autopilot, as I call it. But basically all it means is that you're probably resolved about being taken off track so that you have to work hard again and come back on track. Now, why would someone be resolved about something like that? It's just that we become unconscious about our resolve, and we get very attached to certain experiences. And at a subconscious level, we start operating in such a way that those experiences start repeating themselves. But it is actually coming from a state of resolve. So this is a very important piece to understand. Even something as simple as, it's like, in my case, losing weight. I know exactly what to do. And I've known that for a long time, and I do it from time to time. And then, it's like a yo-yo effect. Well, maybe I'm not resolved about that, because what I have is a yo-yo effect. Because that is what I'm resolved about. That this was very interesting understanding for me to get. That resolve is always an action. So may as well get conscious about what is it that I'm resolved about, and establish my own vigilante practices that enables me to keep my finger on the pulse of operating from a state of resolve. So for you to anchor yourself in your resolve, just know it is going to call for you to be conscious about it and make some conscious choices and decisions. This is such a huge body of work. And I was excited to get the 7 ways to anchor ourselves in our resolve. Because that is a nuance that is really helpful to get and to know. And it's distinct from really understanding resolve in itself, what it is, and being able to anchor ourselves in it. This is a big body of work that I do with my business collective people, because it's so different when you're coming at your business from a state of resolve versus commitment. That is the secret to what I call as time collapse or milestone collapse. And that can occur in your life as well. So in my case, I am resolved that expecting and accepting miracles are the norm. And that's the gift that I'm bringing out into the world. And therefore, I keep myself in this state of miracles. I look at everything through the miracle lens, taking the full picture into account and being able to see, in amidst all the tragedies that may exist, what is still making my heart sing. It's enabled me to live a life where I experience whole and completeness, but I'm also able to, with courage and with presence, face whatever is there that is going on and be able to operate from a state of no judgment. So let's look at the pathways. So the first one is that I've gotten is it's restore, and it restore resounding and it resurrecting. So in the context of anchoring yourself in your resolve, the first thing to get is, even the moment you even make the choice of operating your life from resolve, just that choice in itself literally is so restorative that it literally reconnects many of the dots that may be disconnected. And it's as if you develop an acuteness to your sight. You're able to see what is actually being shown to you. So it's very deeply restorative to at a cellular level, even making that choice. That's like the reward you give yourself the moment you make the choice that I'm going to operate from a state of resolve. Now, how do you actually do that? And once you have had that hit of the reward, how do you now get to a point where it becomes like a resounding success? Resounding success of reconnecting to your resolve is your resolve being anchored in your reality. And it is so for real. For that, I actually go into looking at what are the things I'm committed to. Which of these commitments actually are at a level of resolve where I know that what I'm committed to, the intention behind it is already fulfilled. So the question to ask when you're re-examining your commitments is, what's the intention? Why am I committed to this? What's the intention? So this particular way of reward and resounding restoration is all about really getting to make some clear choices. Because when you choose to operate from resolve, it may be that there are certain things you do because you have made a commitment to another and there is an expectation of you. and you choose to continue with it, but you really do clean up your act. And you suddenly are left with so much time. And because the moment you start operating from resolve, the reward is time collapse starts to take place. You are plugged into the intention of what you are engaged in. And when you're driven by the intention, if you get a curveball hits, and if you get thrown off to one side, you don't go down, rolling down that track. It somehow magically there's like you're able to regroup. It just happens automatically. Resolve is like that very solid center of gravity that you keep returning back to. That's really the reward. And choosing your commitments by becoming clear about the intention behind those commitments. I mean, just think about it, if you keep getting thrown off track and there's a pattern there, well, what's the commitment here? Okay, well, this is what I want to achieve, but what's the intention behind that? You'll find that there's a disconnect from the intention. That's why you allow yourself to unconsciously slide into a curveball. It's not a very pleasurable realization when you go into a deep dive examination of this particular way, but the reward is massive. So do it without compromise. This is something, it could take months even. And hence the words like reward and resounding. It's like such a resounding success that is available to you of your intentions, of your resolve. You develop a prowess of sifting, commitments from resolve. The second way is enliven and enlighten. So when you make the choice that from now on you're going to come from resolve, and what you're going to engage in is that which is in service of your resolve. And I would say just to develop that muscle of operating from resolve, you can get very high and mighty about it and look at this big, huge, overarching picture. And, in amidst that, what is your vision? You could do that. And you could develop your own understanding of operating from resolve by taking little things, and it could be in the context of a particular project you're working on, or it could be in the context of a particular relationship you're in. Really, each one of us, we do have an overarching gig, if you like, which is our ultimate resolve that our higher self is plugged into, which is where the resilience factor comes in. And you will at some point connect to that, and you may not in this lifetime. Whatever it is, it doesn't matter. It's still very powerful coming from resolve. It's like, literally, it is like hot knife through butter. It's literally slides so beautifully. So the way to operate from resolve is not a way that is full of obstacles and hurdles. It's not hard. So if it looks like you're having to work really hard, you're not enlivened by your resolve. Maybe you're resolved about having that continual experience of working hard. I'm not saying that everything is completely smooth sailing. I use the example of Mahatma Gandhi. He established a resolve. He anchored the resolve that India shall be free in his lifetime. There was no evidence that India could be free in his lifetime because by that time it had been ruled by various powers for hundreds of years. He operated from that resolve, and there's a whole step-by-step approach that he took to arrive at a strategy that hadn't been tried before, that worked to the strength of India, which are the people, just the volume and the numbers of people, and dealt with issues that did not mean that he would need to build up an army and have all sorts of weaponry or anything. They were just issues that affected everyday people. And he went through various ups and downs, all of that occurred, but he remained enlivened. And every time, so this is what happens when you take up a resolve. And I'm speaking from my personal experience of expecting and accepting miracles as my norm and sharing that with humans and humanity. So it becomes their norm. Many, many things occur, but I remain enlivened by that. And it was in, first I just got this statement. I didn't even know what a miracle is. It just felt like too, wishy-washy for my logical mind when I received this as an intuitive statement. And for me to really know exactly what to do about it, I needed to understand what a miracle was. And then I knew, okay, it's something that's making my heart sing. My heart is beating. That is the song of the heart. And I have my own miracle lens. If I have my miracle lens, so do you. And if I can use it anytime because I have access to it, even if I'm in the worst of situations, so can you. So you will arrive at what that is for you. The key thing is whatever happens, ups, downs, whatever occurs, you remain enlivened. And when there is a breakdown, you know that on the other side of that breakdown is a breakthrough. And instead of diving into and being consumed by the breakdown, you look at what's missing and essential that I can put in place to experience a breakthrough. And that is the enlightening part. So you don't let anything pass. Gandhiji used a strategy that I think Napoleon Hill also referred to it that way. It's called managed solitude. And some of you know, my mother was very close to Gandhiji, and she would be with him. And he used to say to me, so many of my stories growing up were stories of the freedom struggle of my relatives that were there at home. And one of the things my mom used to say, one thing I never understood from time to time, they used to call him Bapu, father of the nation, of father figure. She said, I don't know why from time to time Bapu would say, it's time to go to jail again. And that stuck with me to understand, what is it? Why did she say this? And when I actually looked back at really doing like a dismantling of resolve and how ways in which you can operate, the enlightenment came from what I called as managed solitude. So yes, he'd done something, a breakdown occurred or things didn't quite achieve the level of success that he wanted to, or they did and he was taken into jail. He would use that time as, in a very structured way, manage solitude and arrive at, okay, what's the next thing that is going to be done? So the enliven and enlighten, in the second way are really important. When you are operating from resolve, you are enlivened. Even when there is a breakdown, even when things go sideways, you use that as an opportunity to enlighten yourself. And at every stage, you are moving forward. When you are in resolve, you are literally flowing in flow of that resolve. You also learn, and maybe that's going to come in a bit later on, but one of the things that you learn is, this whole piece of trusting. Even if it looks like you have no idea how you're going to move to the next phase, everything that you've tried has failed and hasn't quite delivered, you don't know where to go next. When you are operating from resolve, you go into that enlightened solitude or enlightening solitude space. You yourself will start connecting the dots and emerge with a solution. And that's the next one. The third one is spirited and solution. So spirited solution. So spirited is connecting to the spirit of you, connecting to the spirit of your resolve. A spirited solution is what I call as resolution. Solutions coming from resolve. And the spirited part is remaining connected to the spirit of you, to the spirit of the moment, to the spirit of your environment. That allows you to rise up and be present, right in the center of all the detail of what's going on, maintaining a bird's eye view at all times. When you operate from resolve, it's as if your presence becomes so huge that you can have a bird's eye view at the same time as you're engaged in implementing the detail. How do you know that you are connected to your spirit? And that's why the phrase spirited comes in. There's like a joie de vivre. There's like a spring in your step. There's a lightness of being that automatically starts to come in. And that's when you're plugged into the spirit of you. It's like champagne bubbles of happiness that you can tap into. The spiritedness is alive. So what if, when you come from resolve, so here's the way I use this. When I come from resolve, when I'm plugged into the spiritedness of me, and I'm focusing on solutions, I get myself to a state where I'm experiencing those champagne bubbles from the inside, rather than bulldozing my way, feeling I have to find a solution. Well, really, there isn't anything you have to do. There isn't anything you need to do. Everything is done as a matter of choice. And when you're operating from spirit, you know that. This particular one, because the focus is on solution and its spirited solution, which is resolution, you're able to literally see the wheat from the chaff. So take the time to reconnect to the spirit of you. Sometimes, you may be in a state of complete sadness. Like, I was doing a body of work with one of the organizations, and they lost a very young colleague a couple of days ago. So there was deep sadness there. And almost a sense of guilt that how could we all gather together and look at, miracles when something like this has occurred just a couple of days ago. Connecting to the spirit of the moment really took each one into a space where they found so many things that they could celebrate about the life and the contribution of the person that has chosen to depart. And it literally became one big celebration online. And it became a celebration of aliveness. And really, all we were looking for was to plug in everyone back to the state of resolve that they had signed up for their lives as well as for the organization. And it called for resolution, solution in this moment of grave sadness coming from a state of resolve. And it was such an honoring tribute for this young life in such a short time that had made so many things occur and happen. So you can literally use this way to address anything. When you plug into your own spiritedness, the way you look at the world, what is important, what isn't important, really starts to shift. It's like, Gandhiji could see what the next step could be, as opposed to being consumed by how, in such a harsh way, his nonviolent demonstrators were beaten up. He did not ignore it. He took it into account. That was not the intention, to get consumed by that. The intention was to move forward and realize the resolve. So this way, spirited solution is all about remaining anchored in your resolve. And in doing so, you're remaining engaged in finding solutions that come from a state of resolve. For me, I found, this whole idea of miracles, where something beautiful occurs that makes your heart sing. Being, really using resolution, the spirited solution aspect. What I found was that there were times where, things didn't go the way they were meant to. And it was hurtful, or it was frustrating, or it created anger. And I was looking at, okay, I'm going to get to a point of resolution about this. How can I remain stationed in, going to my miracle lens and looking at what's making my heart sing when I'm really impacted by this particular situation that has occurred? And it is in that quest that I got introduced to the whole concept of, just like any lens of a camera that you look through, the miracle lens also has filters, and there are 9 filters. And this was very interesting, an amazing understanding that emerged. And then I could see, in that particular situation, what is the filter that I can place on my lens that allows me to honor the situation and all that has occurred in its fullness. Remember, in my world, I always take the mind along. But I take the mind along knowing that it is the moment, the present, that I am working on. And I am allowing myself to be guided from my inner wisdom, knowing that I'm safe. I'm not going to suddenly collapse, so the mind doesn't need to scream. And in that kind of a situation that I was looking at, I realized that whatever I give energy to, I get more of. So I just had to use the energy filter on my miracle lens to look at, okay, what do I want more of? So what am I going to give energy to? But that's just an example of what emerged from taking up this particular way. The 4th way. This one is about openness. And it's about openness and optimism. So often, especially when it comes to resolve, so often when things go wrong or go sideways, when it comes to resolve, what we lose first is the optimism. And that is, when we lose optimism, is where the door shuts and we stop being open. So what I found was that when it came to resolve, rather than beating myself up if I was feeling closed about a particular situation based on previous experiences that I might have had, I actually went for optimism, really harnessing that optimism again within me. And that automatically, it's like optimism is the hinge of the door to openness. And it's a very, very useful approach, very useful way of, returning back to resolve, returning back to operating from a state of resolve. Find that optimism. And then that openness comes in. Openness is essential. It is essential for you to find a creative solution that comes from resolve. If you're not open, creativity is not there. And you start becoming consumed by what's occurring. So optimism is the hinge of the door of openness. And open the door of openness to creatively find that spirited solution, resolution as we call it. The fifth one was an unusual one. Actually, fifth way was an unusual one. And I don't change any words when I receive guidance like this. So this one was lampoon to laudable. So lampoon is where you literally are like, destroying or it comes from judging certain things and really destroying even the base premise of of that. It's as if when you are, one of the ways of anchoring yourself in your resolve is being very aware of what habits, practices, tolerances or intolerances that you may hold that are ready to be lampooned out. And it is the lampooning that's necessary for you then to be able to move forward in a laudable way. You are the one that is going to begin that process, really acknowledging, appreciating, recognizing those steps that you take coming from your resolve. When you are operating in resolve, you automatically stand tall. You're automatically plugged into your presence. And as a result, you have a presence with people. They just know. You feel laudable and you receive those accolades back. And you don't necessarily require that to move forward. You don't necessarily, require any encouragement, because that encouragement comes from within. So this particular lampoon to laudable is a journey that you go through, and it becomes your propeller, if you like. That gets you to take off and fly and keep flying, keep moving forward towards your destination. Lampooning is necessary. So from time to time, look at where you're going to apply the lampooning. We so often use it with situations outside of us, lampooning. From the environment to people to projects to, choices, decisions. Applying this to yourself from time to time. This is like your detox. You don't need to suffer that. Once you know there is a collection of toxins, do what's needed to move it, but lampoon it out. Bit aggressive, I thought, but I can see the power of it. And it's very concerted, very definite, and you're making that choice. You're becoming the Shiva yourself, destroying that which no longer serves you, making room for the new to emerge, which also exists within you. It just hasn't been able to surface. This is the thing about resolve. The moment you get resolve, really all the solutions are there, the wisdom is there, the vitality is there, the life force is there, the well-being is there. It literally starts opening up by itself. And the sixth way is it's a vanguard to value. It's like really being, you are the vanguard of value that you deliver, that you bring forth in your existence. Even if you don't have the solutions that people are looking for, even if you might have failed in your effort, your very presence and your dedication to your resolve delivers value. And there's a mark of quality that vanguard denotes, that you experience. It's like you've done, this is really the experience of I have done my very best. This particular way, this experience is such, the vanguard of value experience that you station yourself in when you are operating from resolve. It's like it gives you a very unique strength of your spine. It gives you a connectedness to your center of gravity. And it basically means even the toughest of situations, at best, you may sway a little. But you have that inner knowing, you have that confidence that you will always resurrect and come back to your center. Nothing takes you off your game. And there is that no nonsense, no BS, joy-filled, elegant, respectful, honoring presence with which you show up automatically. Where people know just by being with you, there is something of great value that they're going to get. And even if you say nothing, your presence would have touched another in such a way that they will start to recognize their own value. When Gandhiji started doing his marches, like the Salt March and others that he did, where there would be hundreds of thousands of people, most people, couldn't even be close to him physically, but it didn't matter. This vanguard of value impact expanded his presence so much that you literally felt like you were right there with him. Because he didn't say it, but he really did bring about the experience of each person feeling like they themselves were a leader in their life. And they plugged into the resolve of India shall be free in our lifetime. And the seventh way, I have this fabulous thing called Remarkable, by the way, in which I make my notes. It's pretty cool. The seventh way is electrifyingly energized. When you are operating from resolve, it just has its own power. It's like you have your own power source. You have your own horsepower source. And sometimes the power is so strong and it can feel overwhelming. At that point, you can just ease off and allow yourself to experience the energy of it and not get electrocuted. But it is electrifying. It's electrifying because everybody around you, even those that may not be engaged with what you're about, can't help but notice and experience the energy of what you're doing, what you're talking about, what you're going about. And if you don't feel energized yourself, and it can happen, when you're operating from resolve, because that's what really matters. You can experience feeling beaten down, but just know that you have access to this way, electrifying and energized, that you can always pause your own emotions and find something that is electrifying. And I love to carry with me either a set of crystals or certain colors, palettes. Royal blue is electrifying for me. Violet is. So you create your own physical repository of stuff if you require to tap into that. And absolutely, most certainly look at what is it in your memories, in your experiences, in what's out there in nature that is electrifying. So when you start operating from resolve, you have a collection of memories, physical objects, photographs that physically can achieve a change in state. Because when you are operating from resolve, you can change your state anytime you want. I mean, from the time that I know about the miracle lens that I use all the time, I just use that now. And that is electrifying. When you start realizing that in a moment, there are so many things that are making my heart sing right now. And when you recognize that every moment is a moment of miracles. And there are so many moments that make up 1 second And there are at least 60 seconds in a minute and so on. You can't help but be energized. So these are 7 ways in which you can use to anchor yourself in your resolve. If you haven't quite defined it, remember, there is only one purpose to life. For everyone's life, there is only one purpose, which is to come alive. What is your gig that you know is a sure shot way of you coming alive? You may have it, you may not have it, it doesn't matter. My gig is humans and humanity knowing that expecting and accepting miracles are their norm. That's my gig. And you may have yours and you may not have yours, it doesn't matter. For those of you who know what your source mastery is, that's your gig. And those who don't, come alive. You know what aliveness feels like. Even if you get resolved about aliveness, light bulbs will start to switch on and you will start to notice and see what it is that's making your heart sing. And in any case, always know we only ever operate from what we are resolved about. You know what you're resolved about by what you already have in your life. Get intentional about it, and then you can start directing your way to getting to what your intention is. And I know that Catherine is here. So Catherine, I'm going to hand over to you. If anybody has any questions, you can put them in the chat. And I'm going to just hand over to Catherine to see if she wants to facilitate any particular questions.
Hi,
Put them in.
Yes, good to see you all. This is my favorite subject, Mynoo. It took me a while to really get resolve. It actually took me quite some time to completely understand the depth and the breadth of it. And I remember I would hear the word resolve, but I couldn't quite embody it. And so I'm excited to replay this one over and over and find all the 7 ways, because I've only caught the last few. So if anyone has a particular question, now would be a perfect time to ask Mynoo, because I think resolve is quite a big thing. And I love, Mynoo, did you talk about Gandhi in this resolve?
Yes.
So I love that story. It's so perfect. It's so fitting, and it really, it anchors it. So before we share our closing comments, if there's anyone that would like to put in the chat or come on, let me know, and I will ask Mynoo that question. And again, I think staying on track is such an important part of this whole idea of resolve, because we tend to somehow go in and out of it. So I know I'm excited about the replay so that I can anchor it in my own life. But if anyone does have a question, please let us know.
I just feel that what would be helpful is to elaborate on something that I referred to called managed solitude. So when you come from resolve, there are time to time where you would have really gone so deep and done so much work and found that the impact you were expecting hasn't occurred in the way you expected it to. And that's where, rather than changing, you don't go changing your resolve. You go looking at, okay, what is it that I do next? So a very practical strategy that I used for myself was this managed solitude. And, knowing what I knew from my mom's experience with Gandhiji, where she said he would say, oh, it's time to go to jail again. I thought, okay, I guess why did he go to jail? There were no distractions. There were just these walls. And he had his question that he was looking at, what does he do next? There was no distraction whatsoever. He was able to really go into it and find, what the next step would be. So I thought, well, what is the equivalent of that for me? And I was in London at the time. And I found that, the best thing for me would be to go into my car and go and park it somewhere and use my parked car as my chamber of managed solitude. No distractions. I'm just there, and I have a question. Okay, this is the thing that I want to get past, or this is the breakthrough that I'm looking for. Where do I go next? So you can create your own managed solitude chambers, but do practice it. Sometimes I did that once every 3 months, even if I didn't have any questions, just taking stock of what has occurred in my life and where I go next. It's a great practice.
Thank you, Mynoo. We do have some questions coming in, so thank you for that understanding. First of all, I just want to say that Sarah is saying fireworks are currently going off in Manhattan big time with Resolve, which is where she resides. So yes, we're hitting home with that. Thank you, Sarah. Vince has asked, is Resolve always happening, but it's only to become conscious and choose the direction of the resolve you want? As a question. So is Resolve always happening, and or do you choose the direction of the resolve that you want?
Yeah. So the bottom line is, what you have we will always have something in our life, something or the other in our life. And, what you have in your life is what you're resolved about. So it's always happening. You're absolutely right in that. So get conscious about it, Vince. Get conscious about what am I resolved about. That becomes the overarching context. So when I became conscious that, okay, I am resolved about humans and humanity, expecting and accepting miracles as their norm, and that's the context in which I show up, wherever I show up, on whatever it is that I do, then that's the pulse that I'm keeping my finger on. That directs my conversations with people. And I can be fully present. That's the key thing.
Thank you, Mynoo. Asha has a question. Many times staying with others, you feel you are alone, and then I get back what I have resolved to be with my solitude. And in my knowing, I come back to myself. But at this time, a lot of turmoil is in the mind. Can you help sort this out?
So my invitation to you would be to look at, maybe there's a part of you that is resolved about keeping the turmoil in the mind. You know that you have the heart, which is in the present, and you have access to your gut, which is your inner wisdom. So when there is turmoil in the mind that occurs quite easily, because mind is about survival, and it can get into that state of turmoil, you step into your resolve about thriving. So the moment you know that, aliveness is about thriving. If the only purpose to life is to come alive, what you do have access to naturally is thriving. So the disturbance or the turmoil in the mind, that in itself automatically starts to ease when you step into your resolve about thriving. Do not ignore the turmoil in the mind. Just allow your mind to see that there is more than just the mind that is running the show. Let the mind have access to the full picture. Sometimes the sound, the voice or the sound of the mind is so loud and vibrationally that it's difficult to do that. I ask at that point, I say to people, use the 9-4-6 breath. Do 5 of those, breathing into the count of 9, hold to the count of 4, breathe out to the count of 6. That immediately connects the mind, the heart, and the gut, and they are connected. The mind starts to quieten down a bit. Go and apply the unconditional acceptance process, where you really acknowledge everything that you're feeling, including the turmoil and what it's doing to you, until there is nothing else that is coming in, and you then make a conscious choice of unconditionally accepting what is. But those are all tactics. I would say inquire into whether you are resolved about sliding into the turmoil in the mind. And that's the piece that you release and become consciously aware of, being resolved about coming alive.
Thank you, Mynoo. I have another question that's come in from Christian. It's a very good question. So I'll read that one for you. When in the space of resolve, is the higher self anchored in the body?
In a state of resolve, your higher self and the body are one. That happens naturally. And that's why many of these ways, enliven to enlighten and all of that is there, because they completely coexist. Now, there may be that certain times where you go off track and you know that this is not your higher self and you are stuck in the turmoil of the mind, like Asha talked about, where that turmoil in the mind that doesn't exist at a higher self state, which is why I say come back to your ultimate resolve, which is all about aliveness. Or like in my case, I have a very conscious definition of what I'm doing with that aliveness. When you get into that space, your higher self immediately drops in to your body.
Mynoo, you may have also touched on this one already, but this is a question that's come up quite a bit to me personally. And I'm so sorry that I missed the first part of this because I'm sure it's come out. But when you want to be resolved about something, but you haven't quite gotten there and you know you're not resolved about it, or it would be, what is the first step to take to make your way in being resolved?
What I say to people, I mean, there are deep ways in which we do this. Our whole Living from Source program is about that. The Journey into Miracles removes many, many things out of the way. The whole miracle lens immersion takes you into the other side, and you do get to see what you're resolved about. And then we connect to what the innate vibration is. And that's it. That's really what it's all about. So there are those ways which, reach out to Catherine or to me, and I can take it further with you on that front. As a minimum, remaining plugged into this understanding that there is only one purpose to life. Life is a state where an organism is breathing. That state can change in a click of a finger where the organism stops breathing. What keeps you alive is how you chose to live your life. And the only purpose to life is to come alive. And then it is that aliveness that continues. So once you understand that, Catherine, that can be your resolve,
And I wish that we all could have that like tattooed on our forehead. That was so eloquently said. So I think we need like cue cards that we can remind ourselves when we're in life, because it's so beautiful and it makes such sense. And I think thank you for that. We're here at the end now. It is 1 minute till we must depart. So I would love to read the words that you would like to offer for Mynoo in your closing here tonight. And I know we already got started with Sarah talking about the fireworks, and I'm sure that another wow from many. So if anyone would like to give any other comments, I would love to share those. So here we go. Today I have understood deeply miracle lens. Wow, that's great. That's amazing. That's a big one. That's from Asha. I know, I feel like this miracle lens, Mynoo, we talk about it, and until we've actually really integrated it, it's hard to understand and how powerful that can be in our everyday life. I use that miracle lens. I use that vanilla filter. I feel like every day. It's incredible. Okay, resolve is the secret to an engaged and happy life. Beautiful.
Indeed. Thank you all. On that note, I will see most of you on Saturday. Thank you.
I
Thank you.
have a couple more to read for you, Mynoo. I
Okay.
resolved to focus this is from Maryel. I resolved to focus my life on aliveness in all its colors. And what
Yay.
a beautiful one. Yay. High 10 on that.
That's great.
Okay, one more. Grateful for the understanding of resolve. Brings me into my fullness. Thank you, Lee. Thank you all. I know we could go on and on with amazing comments from Mynoo. And yes, so we'll all get to practice resolve this week until next week when we're on to our 29th Pearl of Wisdom. We will see you next Thursday.
Thank you
Thank you
all.
all.
Thank
Thank you, Mynoo.
you. Bye-bye.